investor information meeting this week where we, just gathering the crowd, gathering the pack, as you'd say, to
That's
and do something.
That's part of the theme, so that's great that you mentioned that. This is another episode of Form Your Own Pack podcast. My guest today is David Dietrich from Creator Films. How are you doing, David?
Good. How about yourself, Michael?
Great. So for people that don't know, who is David?
Oh, gosh. David's a father, a pastor, a filmmaker, everyday guy trying to learn everything I can to be successful.
I love it. That is a great answer. And then your venture is called Creator Films.
Yes.
I think you're currently... I can't remember if I know you're running a campaign on WeFunder, and so you're at that certain. Are you at the startup stage? Would you describe as?
Yeah, I mean we're about 3 years in,
Okay.
But we're in our second campaign. So our first campaign was kind of a friends and family. We raised a little over 65,000. And we're just about to hit 6K in this, or I'm sorry, 6 figures in this campaign. Had a great kind of investor information meeting this week where we, just gathering the crowd, gathering the pack, as you'd say, to and do something.
That's part of the theme, so that's great that you mentioned that. So for people that don't know about it, what is Creator Films?
Yeah, Creator Films is a film company or a media company. It is faith-based, but we, biblically, when you look at the stories that Jesus would tell in the New Testament, they weren't exactly, teaching heavy-handedly. They were things called parables, and parables were stories that the culture at the time, was very agrarian. People just kind of struggling to get by, try to feed the family and whatnot. And they were relatable to the people that are around them, but they had, deeper meaning, for life. And those are the kind of stories that we're trying to tell for all age ranges, adults. And we're really focusing on stories for kids right now.
So what was the big motivation to start Creator?
I mean, my faith is obviously a big part of who I am, but also, everybody around me who's part of the organization. We always like to say that our North Star, the thing that kind of drives us is to tell stories that are impactful and as profitable as possible, because we know that we can't achieve our first goal, which would be to, be impactful to the world around us, to be what the Bible would say is salt and light, to, bring hope, bring truth, bring love. And we can't do that unless we're making content that is profitable, right? Making content requires finances. So as I kind of went to film school, thought about what I wanted to do. There was always just something in me that wanted to communicate the things that I find are most impactful in my life, that give me meaning, that give me hope, that drive me to be a better man, and to be able to share that with other people. And I think that's the heart of. In some ways, I think that's the heart of every person, but especially artists and entrepreneurs.
And then what sort of stories have you been telling with Creator Films?
Yeah, so our first feature film was a romantic comedy called About Hope, and it opened nationwide as theaters were reopening. We actually got a national release, opened in the top 20. It's an independent film. So, it's not the norm for an independent film to get kind of a national release. So it was just, circumstantially, we were very blessed to see that. And that's a romantic comedy. It's available on Amazon. I think Freeform is their new kind of ad-based revenue. We just kind of switched it over to there strategically because Amazon Prime doesn't pay royalties hardly at all.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And yeah. I mean, you as an independent filmmaker, you put your Amazon or your project on Amazon Prime, you get a couple of cents for every hour viewed. Where with some of the ad-based distribution platforms that are coming out now, you can see that double, triple, quadruple, sometimes 10 times the revenue pulling in from your viewership than you would on the streaming platforms like Prime and Netflix and things like that. Yeah, so that was just a romantic comedy, kind of a romantic dramedy. It definitely has a faith message in it. We don't hide that, but we had at our premiere screening, we had a lot of people who were atheist and Jewish and a plethora of other kind of faith traditions that really enjoyed it and expressed that to us. And didn't feel like the film was unenjoyable if you weren't from that faith tradition.
That's good. And there were no special effects in it?
Very few.
It seems to be the way movies are now, right? Like it's like, hey, what do you mean actors?
Very few. Yeah, it depends on what you call a special effect.
Yeah, true.
We did some spray bottles on windows to simulate.
That counts. I don't know.
That,
All right. If you could offer only one piece of advice to other founders, what would that be?
Gosh, I think just be tenacious, persevere, because you're not going to know everything that you need to know getting into it. I mean, every entrepreneur, every business person that I know who has started anything from a plumbing business to a mortgage business to, media companies, they have made idiot decisions that they regretted, and they learned from them and they persevered past them. So don't be afraid of losing money. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, but persevere and continue to educate yourself on your vision, your market, and what it is you're trying to accomplish, and definitely your consumer.
I love it. That's great advice. What role, and I think you might have alluded to this already, but what role has community or partnerships been to your success so far?
Well, I mean, for us, our whole business model is based on community. I mean, we're an equity crowd-funded company, and part of our, vision is that we are a company owned by people of faith making movies for the world. So the people of faith kind of gathering together to give something to the world that's of value. So the community is made up of, investors who are everyday investors. I mean, we have hundreds of investors, and they range from $100 investments to $60,000+ investments, and it's just a plethora of people in different positions. And I think we have people come in, and of course you love to see somebody come in and invest at $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in an equity crowdfund campaign. But really, we get just as excited about any investor, because our whole business model is dependent upon the crowd and the community coming behind us, and that we're all doing this, that together our voices make a greater impact and are able to do greater things than any one of us would have been able to do on our own. So the crowd is critically important for us.
Love it. That is wonderful to hear. That is consistent with what we kind of evangelize on our side, which is that you need to find allies, alliances, and form a community around what you're working on. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I want to wrap with two quick things. I want to acknowledge you for, going it in the film industry. That is crazy. That is not a normal business, but there's lots of interesting channels. So that's really interesting. First of all, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, David at Creator Films is, the best way. Shoot me an email. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, Creator Films, kind of do a search for us and we'll come up. Our Creator Films is our Instagram and Facebook. And just reach out. We'd love to chat.
It's amazing. All right. The final thing is, when we have interesting founders on, we'd like you to nominate other interesting founders to be guests of the Form Your Own Pack podcast. We usually talk to investors or entrepreneurs who are starting scalable ventures.
Mhm.
Who would you, David, like to nominate as a future guest?
Gosh, I mean, there's a couple of people that are in this space. Michael and Brandon over at Brainy Pixel. They're a faith-based animation studio, trying to make a difference and break in, and it's kind of that same David versus Goliath, type thing. You get these massive corporations, but also a very interesting person who I don't, I mean, it's the startup thing. You think of it in so many different places, but Adam over at Spring to Life Studios and Spring to Life Ministries, they run a in-house addiction recovery center, and they're one of the only that I know of, but if not the only one of the very few recovery centers that are faith-based, but also able to bill insurance and kind of go through. So they're a really unique place, and they are. I mean, the industry standard for addiction recovery is about 10%. 10% of the people that go in for treatment come out, the other side, and they have like well over a 65-70% recovery rate. So I mean, it's
Wow, that is
insanely
incredible.
different. Yeah.
All
So
right, well,
those
those
would
are
be the
great.
first two to come to mind.
Yeah, so Michael and Brandon from Brainy Pixels, I think it
Yep.
is, and
Yep.
then Adam from Spring to Life. You've
Yeah.
been
Comer is his last name, Adam Comer. Yeah.
Comer. Great. We will accept those nominations. You guys have been nominated. We look forward to talking to you in the future. David, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.